I was living my dream. Being a commercial diver wasn't just a job, it was everything I had ever wanted. On top of that, I was the chief engineer on a research project that involved testing new diving technology. It was a double win, but the day my life changed forever, we had just tested a new remotely operated vehicle, ROV. The weather turned nasty as we raced toward the harbour. The harbour master refused us entry because 25 to 30-foot breakers were pounding the breakwater. We had a design engineer on board who needed to get to LAX, so we launched a rubber Zodiac to try and get him to shore. Out at sea, we were dodging swells, up and down, trying to keep a bearing on the harbour buoy. Suddenly, we went off the top of a massive breaker. We were airborne. I yelled to turn back to sea, but before we could, another breaker crashed down. It folded the Zodiac like a peanut butter sandwich, and I was thrown into the ocean. I was deep. My old World War II era life vest, a Mae West, was supposed to bring me to the surface, but it didn't. As a commercial diver, I knew I could hold my breath for about 3 minutes. But time ran out. Oxygen deprivation took over and I inhaled salt water. For a brief moment there was burning, then silence. I was no longer in my body. Darkness surrounded me, but it was peaceful. The deafening roar of the sea was gone. I wasn't tossed and tumbled anymore. I was somewhere else entirely. It was March and the water was freezing, but I wasn't cold anymore. I wasn't even aware of my body. I just floated in complete darkness, suspended in a space that felt endless. Strangely, I didn't feel alone. There was a presence, something I can't quite put into words, but it was there, surrounding me, filling the darkness with something more. Many call this place the void, and for some, it's terrifying. Being trapped in absolute darkness, disconnected from everything, can be frightening. But for me, after the chaos I had just endured, this stillness felt like a gift. I wasn't tumbling anymore. I wasn't struggling to survive. It was quiet, peaceful. As a commercial diver, I knew the effects of oxygen deprivation, but this was beyond anything I had learned or experienced. I wasn't scared. I was curious. Then I saw it, a tiny speck of light, the only thing in that vast darkness. It pulled me in. I couldn't tell if I was moving toward it or if it was coming to me, but there was motion, and with each moment I felt waves of warmth and love. Closer and closer, the light wasn't just a beam. It was millions of shimmering fragments, all dancing like a school of fish, shifting and glimmering with vibrant colors. I was mesmerized. As I approached, 3 of these fragments broke away and moved toward me. I didn't hear words, but I knew. They were welcoming me home. I was overwhelmed by the love pouring from them. Then more fragments came, surrounding me with warmth and acceptance. And that's when I realized I had become one of them. I was light. They communicated that we were going deeper. As we moved, I felt like we were entering a vast, spherical space, an endless expanse of love and belonging. I wasn't just witnessing something extraordinary. I was part of it. I found myself inside what felt like an enormous, spherical space, a place where time and reality shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just remembering my life. I was reliving it. But it wasn't like watching a movie. It was deeper, more immersive. I felt everything, not just from my own perspective, but from the viewpoint of everyone I had ever interacted with. I could feel what they felt because of my words and actions. It was humbling. I had been a brash, self-centered young man, plowing through life without much thought for how I affected others. Now I was experiencing the hurt, the joy, and everything in between, through their eyes. My soul family, the beings of light who had welcomed me, were there with me, witnessing it all. But they weren't judging me. They just observed with unconditional love. The only judgment came from within me. I felt waves of shame at times, but there was no condemnation, only understanding. What struck me the most was how the smallest acts of kindness created powerful ripples, extending far beyond what I could have imagined. A simple moment of helping someone without expecting anything in return generated these immense waves of love and energy. In contrast, my biggest ego-driven achievements, things I had once been so proud of, barely caused a ripple. It was a profound realization. Then, something shifted. I began seeing things I couldn't recognize, visions of paths not yet taken. I was seeing my future potential branching out in different directions. The central path was crystal clear, but other possibilities hovered at the edges. Paths I could choose if I wanted. It felt like standing at a crossroads where infinite possibilities unfolded before me. As I moved deeper, I reached a point where the millions of fragments of light, the very essence of what I perceived as God, spoke to me in unison. The message was simple but profound. It's not your time. You must return. I resisted. I argued. I had never felt love like this before. My soul family embraced me in a way I had never experienced on Earth. I didn't want to go back to a broken body, to the chaos I had left behind. But then the light spoke again. This time the voice was gentle, yet firm, filled with boundless love. You have a purpose. That word, purpose, resonated through me like a vibration that echoed beyond time and space. In that moment, I understood. My consciousness, connected to all souls that ever were and ever will be, grasped the weight of those words. And with that understanding, I accepted what had to happen. Suddenly I was back outside my body, still caught in the chaos of the breaker zone. My body was being tossed and spun in a vortex, tangled with wreckage from the zodiac. I was watching from above, detached but aware. Then I saw something. One of the pontoons, still holding a bit of air, shifted with the force of the waves. A bowline wrapped around my arm, cinching tight. Another wave hit, and the zodiac wreckage was pulled upward, dragging my lifeless body toward the surface. I was still outside, watching it all unfold. But something was pulling me back, and I knew my journey was far from over. When I came back into my body, it wasn't a dramatic jolt. It was a gentle push from my soul family, and suddenly I was there. Back in the wreckage, back in the chaos. But I wasn't fully grounded. I was half here, half there, still feeling the vastness of that other realm. My lungs were burning as salt water was forced out by the pounding waves slamming me against the wreckage. But I was alive. As I floated at the surface, coughing and gasping for air, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Purpose. I had been told I had a purpose, but the clarity I felt in the light was fading, like sand slipping through my fingers. I couldn't grasp it anymore. It was slipping away, leaving me disoriented. Then, in the distance, I heard voices. My crewmates. They had stayed in the danger zone, searching for me. One of them, by some miracle, still had a flashlight, sweeping it across the waves, trying to spot me between the swells. I tried to call out, but after inhaling so much salt water, my voice was gone. All I could manage was a faint squeak. Somehow they heard me. They found me. But we weren't safe yet. We still had a mile to swim through the dark, rough waters. I was barely staying afloat, and something felt wrong. I glanced down and realized my old life vest, a World War II-era Mae West, was failing. It had soaked up salt water and was dragging me down instead of keeping me up. I ripped it off and clung to what was left of the Zodiac. We rallied together, supporting each other through that final mile. Every stroke was a fight, but we made it. And while surviving that night was hard, coming back to life was even harder. Once I was back, everything felt dense. Reality on this side felt heavier, almost dreamlike, compared to the hyper-real, expansive consciousness I had experienced. My body was battered, my shoulder dislocated and my thumb out of place. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the weight of what I had brought back with me. The after effects of that experience hit me like a tidal wave. I could look into people's eyes and see their light, their essence. I started seeing auras, though I didn't know that's what they were at the time. To me, they were life force energies. And then came the knowings. It was like receiving downloads of information, things I had never studied, never learned. But I just knew. At first they were whispers, but they grew louder, more detailed. It freaked me out. I was a science-based guy, an engineer who dealt with facts and logic. This was something I couldn't explain. I didn't know what to do with it. I tried sharing it with my first wife, but she couldn't handle it. She was terrified. I couldn't talk about it with my crewmates either. Death wasn't exactly a topic we discussed after dangerous dives, so I shut it all down. I boxed it up and tried to move on. But you can't unsee what I saw. You can't unknow what I learned. The only things I allowed myself to hold on to were 3 core truths I had learned from my experience. Acceptance. I had to accept who I was, flaws and all, but also recognize I had the power to change. Tolerance. I realized everyone has their own path, and it's not my job to judge. I could be more compassionate, more understanding. Truth. I had always been driven by hard facts, but I learned that there's a deeper truth that resonates within our hearts, a personal truth that goes beyond logic. Those 3 things became my mantra, but everything else, I shoved it away. I wanted my old life back. I wanted things to make sense again. But life had other plans. 11 years later, during a meditation, I was pulled back into the light. This time, I relived the entire experience. Only now I had lived over a decade beyond my first near-death experience. I saw how much I had changed. And that's when I realized I couldn't cherry-pick the parts of the experience that I was comfortable with. I had to honor the entire journey. I had to embrace it fully. And that's when my real transformation began. But my story didn't end there. There was more. Much more. When the doctor finally spoke, his words hit me like a punch to the gut. He told me they would do their best to keep me comfortable, but the situation was severe. Stage 4 cancer. It had spread: lungs, spine, brain, kidneys. My spine had even collapsed because the tumor could no longer support its weight. They were ready to give me morphine, tell me to get my affairs in order, and wait for the inevitable. But I wasn't ready to give up. I had seen this moment before in my life review. I knew I was going to have cancer, but I had also seen that I would survive it. And if I could stand up to God and say, "No, I'm not ready," I sure as hell wasn't going to let a doctor tell me it was over. I had a purpose, and I wasn't done yet. So, I chose my care team. I agreed to chemo and radiation, but I also leaned heavily on holistic approaches. I had learned to trust my spiritual guidance, and I knew that morphine and heavy painkillers clouded that connection. I couldn't hear the messages, the insights that had guided me through so much. That scared me more than the cancer itself. So I found a way to manage the pain through mindfulness, a technique that came to me in what I can only describe as an angelic vision. 6 months later, something in me knew the cancer was gone. I asked for another PET scan. The doctors were reluctant. They thought it was pointless. Another test that would only confirm their grim predictions. But I insisted. And when the results came back, no one wanted to look. They didn't want to be the ones to deliver more bad news. But I knew it wasn't bad news. A nurse I had known personally finally stepped in. His brother had worked for me in dialysis, so I asked him to check the results. He couldn't tell me directly, but he let my doctor know. The next thing I knew, my doctor was standing in front of me, his face filled with shock. The results were clear. The cancer was gone. I stopped treatment immediately. I knew I didn't need it anymore, but the damage had been done. My spine was so compromised that I had to live with a collapsed spine for nearly a year before they would finally agree to perform reconstructive surgery. I now have a titanium construct holding my spine together. I lost the feeling in my hands and feet, and I live with chronic pain because the titanium and bone don't expand and contract at the same rate. It's a constant ache. But that's my life now, and I choose to live it. What I learned through all of this is that life is like a pendulum. When we're caught up in our human experience, paying bills, dealing with everyday life, our connection to that divine light feels small, almost distant. But when we shift our focus toward our spiritual side, that light expands, filling us with insight, love, and understanding. Most of us go through life unaware that we have this incredible source of energy and guidance within us. But when we touch that light, we can bring its wisdom back with us, blending it into our everyday lives. After my experiences, I began to feel this duality, my spiritual self and my human self, and I realized that integrating the two was the key. When we recognize that we're all interconnected, that we share energy and light with one another, it changes everything. Right now, as I share my story, I'm giving you a fragment of my light. And whether you realize it or not, we're exchanging energy in this moment. But most people never talk about this. They don't recognize the constant flow of connection that binds us all. Yet once you've seen it, once you've felt it, you can never go back. You understand that life is so much more than what we experience with our 5 senses. There's a deeper truth, a divine undercurrent that flows through everything. And that truth, it's always there, waiting for us to remember. And just when I thought my journey had settled, life had another surprise in store for me. This story was far from over. I woke up to find a towering figure, easily 10 feet tall, standing at the foot of my bed. But instead of fear, my first thought was, well, I'm glad I have high ceilings. I was so used to strange occurrences by this point that I barely registered the enormity of what was happening. Half awake, I muttered, "What do you want?" The being didn't speak. Words weren't necessary. Energetically, I felt his message. He had come to let me know he would be returning soon, and there was much he needed to show and teach me. I shrugged it off and went back to sleep. But a few hours later, I woke up violently ill, so sick that I ended up back in the hospital. No one could figure out what was wrong. I was allergic to almost every medication, and they had no way to help me. I was sent home barely holding on. Then, 10 days later, around 1 a.m., he returned. This time I was fully awake. I panicked. No. Last time you showed up, I almost died. I don't want to go through that again." But he didn't leave. He just stood there, silent and unwavering. I took a deep breath and felt an acceptance within me. And the moment I surrendered, he extended his hand. The second I touched it, boom, we were flying. We flew through the night, landing right in the middle of my ranch. But this wasn't just a visit. It was the beginning of something I could never have imagined. The spirit, who told me I could call him Father, began pulling these strange black spikes out of the ground. I asked what he was doing, and he explained that they were remnants of ancient energies left behind by past civilizations. He was clearing the land because it was sacred ground that needed to be restored. As we walked, I noticed a massive campfire ahead, surrounded by a dozen Native American elders. Father led me to the fire, and as we approached, he turned to me and said, "They will teach you. They will train you to be one of us." I didn't understand what that meant at the time, but I followed without question. For 13 consecutive nights, the same thing happened. Father would come to me, take me back to the ranch, and the elders would download ancient knowledge into me, wisdom that spanned lifetimes. After each session, I would wake up, go downstairs, and write down everything I had been taught. But by the third night, my body couldn't handle it. I was getting dangerously sick. I told my wife, "I don't know if I'm going to survive this." Father knew. The next night, he handed me what looked like an enormous glowing seed, pulsing with light. He said, "This will hold the knowledge so you don't have to carry it in your body." When I touched it, the top split open like a flower, and the information poured into me, one chapter at a time. On the 7th night, everything changed. I arrived to find a larger fire and a celebration underway. One of the elders approached me, tore off a small piece of cloth from his garment, and handed it to me. I asked Father what it meant, and he explained, "This is the exchange of the cloth. It means you are becoming one of us." I was being initiated. They asked me to take responsibility for a sacred section of Mother Earth, to protect its plants, make medicine, and ensure the land remained healthy. Without fully understanding the gravity of what I was agreeing to, I said yes. I was tasked with creating a center to preserve these ancient medicinal plants and to help others establish similar sanctuaries around the world. They told me that these plants held the key to healing not just humans, but all living beings. When I asked what they were making me, Father said, "There are no words for what you are becoming. But if you must call it something, you are to be a teacher of teachers, a shaman's shaman." That night, they gave me a name, Konak. I struggled to pronounce it correctly until Father grabbed my mouth and made me repeat it until I got it right. "This is your name going forward," he said. The knowledge I received was profound, but it came at a cost. When ancient wisdom enters the body, it carries a frequency, a higher vibration than the physical body can easily hold. It was like trying to force 10 volts of energy into a 5-volt battery. My body couldn't handle it. Every time I tried to work on the book they had tasked me with writing, a book containing the 13 chapters of wisdom, I would get sick again. For years I battled between honoring this sacred knowledge and simply surviving. But one thing was clear: what I had agreed to wasn't just a calling. It was a commitment to something much greater than myself. And that journey was just beginning. Every time I tried to rewrite the book, I got sick. It wasn't about changing words or making it sound better. The words had been given to me with absolute precision. They explained that certain combinations of words could trigger a deeper response in the human mind, allowing us to think on a higher level. It's like saying, "See the dog run." Simple, right? But if I say, "Time is the only thing that matters," your mind starts racing. What does that mean? Past, future, a ticking clock? 5 simple words can create a cascade of thoughts and insights. The 13 chapters I was given weren't just text. They were a blueprint for how humanity used to understand existence. Topics ranged from karma, life force, and earth changes to healing the physical and ethereal body. They described how ancient civilizations, like the Atlanteans, understood that healing wasn't about cutting into the body or giving drugs. It was about shifting energy, changing frequencies, and realigning the body's vibrational state. But this knowledge wasn't lost due to ignorance. They explained that the universe operates like a massive tunnel or shell, and as we move through it, we pass closer to or further from other planetary and galactic energies. For the last 2,000 years, Earth was in a region where these higher energies were blocked, which is why we fell into the Dark Ages. But now, everything is shifting. The energies are returning, and with them, a chance for humanity to remember what was once forgotten. The Mayans never predicted the end of the world in 2012. What they saw was a cosmic shift, a reuniting of universal energies that would change the way we think, live, and connect with each other. After 2,000 years in a part of the galaxy that left us disconnected from higher energies, Earth had finally moved back into alignment with those powerful forces. The book I had been given, those 13 chapters, wasn't just ancient knowledge. It was a guide to help us remember how to reconnect with those energies and return to a more conscious, harmonious way of living. On the final night, after 13 days of receiving this sacred information, Father came to me one last time. His energy was different, more distant, more final. He told me, "This is the last time I can come to you. What we've done is extraordinary, but I will never return in this form again. You're now part of the other, and they will guide you from here." I felt the weight of that moment. I knew everything had changed. In ancient traditions, true healers must first heal themselves. That's the path I was on. I had been given this knowledge not just to share it, but because I had to live it. And so I began to receive visions, dreams where plants would speak to me, showing me how they could heal. I saw which plants could cure specific ailments, how certain combinations could restore balance. I started making medicine, and over the course of a year, I slowly began to heal. But this wasn't just a physical transformation. My family had to watch me, a once strong and successful man, become fragile and completely dependent. I had gone from thriving to barely surviving. It was confusing for them, and for me. I had been given a new mission, but everything about who I was had changed. I wasn't the same person anymore. My purpose had shifted. I was no longer driven by ambition or success. My focus was now on healing myself, the earth, and those around me. One of the most profound realizations I had during this time was that illness isn't just an inconvenience, it's a teacher. Illness happens when we deviate from our path. It's a wake-up call, a way for our soul to get our attention and guide us back to alignment. But in modern society, we view illness as something to be feared and fought against. We numb it with medication, hoping to silence the message it's trying to deliver. Through my work with others, I've seen a pattern. Almost every time someone experiences a major illness, there's a traumatic event that triggered it. A divorce, the loss of a job, or some kind of deep emotional wound. Until that emotional root is addressed, true healing can't happen. Physical remedies can help, but real healing happens when we address the soul component. The ancients came to me again last year and explained something that completely shifted my understanding of life and reincarnation. They told me that most people walking the earth today have had 40 to 50 lifetimes. But what happens when a soul is ready to evolve to a higher level is that they take 4 or 5 of those past lives and combine them into one mini-me. When that soul incarnates again, it carries the memories, skills, and unresolved lessons from those lifetimes. The purpose? To refine and complete the lessons that were left unfinished. Imagine someone who lived as a farmer in the 13th century and then as a doctor in the 15th century. Their diets were primarily plant-based, with minimal meat. When that soul incarnates in the modern world, their body may reject processed foods and crave what they once thrived on. Their soul is trying to guide them back to what resonates with their energetic blueprint. I was shown this concept in a vision. A Native American spirit appeared, wiped the stars from the sky like erasing a blackboard, and then threw up an image of a giant balloon filled with 50 smaller balloons. He pulled out 5 of them and said, "This is a new incarnation. 5 lifetimes merged into one." I realized that's exactly what had happened with me. I had memories from multiple past lives, some as a warrior, a healer, a librarian, and even a film producer. Each lifetime contributed something essential to who I was in this life. When we stand at the precipice between worlds, preparing to incarnate, we're given a choice. We can see the families we might be born into and the lessons they'll teach us. One family might teach humility, another might teach resilience. There's no randomness in life. We choose our circumstances because they align with the lessons we need to learn. When I was 15, I did a past life regression and experienced 2 of my past lives. In one, I was a farmer who had lost his parents, raising his sister alone. In another, I was a woman in the 1700s who worked as a librarian. And later, I discovered I had been a film producer in the 1940s. When I became vice president of Paramount Pictures at the age of 30, it wasn't luck. It was a continuation of a path I had already walked. I knew how to make movies instinctively because I had done it before. Every time we incarnate, we agree to certain lessons and a soul contract. If we stray too far from that path, illness shows up as a course correction. Had I refused to accept my new mission, if I had rejected the knowledge and the responsibility I had been given, I wouldn't have survived. Illness would have taken me out because I wouldn't have been honoring the agreement I made before coming here. When we stop living in alignment with our purpose, our soul finds a way to get our attention. Illness isn't punishment. It's a message, a nudge to bring us back to where we're meant to be. The keys to living in the present. One of the greatest teachings the ancients gave me is that we must learn to live in the present. It sounds simple, but it's not. They explained that most of humanity is trapped by 4 things. Time. We're obsessed with clock time, always counting minutes and planning the future. Money. We believe we need money to create what we desire, limiting the universe's ability to provide in unexpected ways. Future thinking. We're constantly projecting ourselves into the future, missing the opportunities unfolding right now. Negative thoughts. Our minds are cluttered with fears and doubts that block the flow of intuition and higher guidance. When we focus on these things, we disconnect from the present moment and from the divine. But when we let go of counting time, stop obsessing over money, and trust the universe to guide us, we create space for miracles. The ancients likened it to tuning into a radio station. You can't listen to two stations at once. If you're caught up in mental noise, you can't hear the whispers of your soul. But when you quiet your mind, you connect to everything. The final message from the ancients was this: we must return to self-sustainability. Our disconnection from the earth is making us sick, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When we grow our own food, drink pure water, and align with nature's rhythms, we heal not just our bodies, but our souls. The earth is bombarded by higher energies, just like we are. When she can't process them, she releases them through earthquakes, storms, and extreme weather. It's not a punishment. It's a way for her to stay in balance. And just like the earth, we must find ways to process the higher energies we're receiving. By reconnecting with the earth, becoming self-sustainable, and living in harmony with nature, we align ourselves with the universal flow of energy. It's not just about survival, it's about evolution. When we live this way, we step into the fullness of who we are meant to be. My journey has been anything but easy. But through it all, I've learned that we are never truly alone. We are connected to everything and everyone across time, space, and dimensions. Every challenge, every illness, and every moment of suffering is an opportunity to realign with our true purpose. The world is waking up. And as more of us remember who we truly are, we will shift the collective consciousness. We are not separate from the earth or from each other. We are part of something infinitely greater. And as we embrace that truth, we will finally remember what it means to live. As I sit here reflecting on this incredible journey, I realize just how much has changed, not just within me, but in the world around us. The veil between worlds is thinner than ever. People everywhere are waking up to the truth that we are more than just physical beings. We are fragments of divine light, connected to an infinite source of love, wisdom, and energy. And as we awaken, we're being called to remember who we really are. But here's the truth. This journey is not just mine. It's yours too. Every experience I've had, every lesson I've learned, is not meant to stay with me. It's meant to be shared, to ignite something within you. Because if you're watching this right now, it's not an accident. You were drawn here for a reason. Maybe it's a nudge from your guides. Maybe it's your soul whispering that it's time to wake up, to remember, to step into your purpose. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to share what I've seen, felt, and lived. And what I know, beyond any doubt, is that you are never alone. Whether you believe in guides, angels, or a higher source, it doesn't matter. Someone is walking beside you, guiding you, loving you unconditionally, even in your darkest moments. And if you're feeling lost, disconnected, or overwhelmed, I want you to know, you're exactly where you need to be. But here's the thing. Awakening doesn't happen in isolation. We're meant to grow together. And that's why I'm inviting you to be part of this incredible journey. If what I've shared resonates with you, if it stirred something deep inside, don't let this moment pass. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Have you ever felt a presence? Have you had dreams or experiences that you can't explain? I'd love to hear your story. Every comment creates a ripple of connection, and you never know who might need to hear your truth. Hit the like button if something in this message spoke to you. Your engagement doesn't just help this message reach more people, It's a signal to the universe that you're ready to align with your higher purpose. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I'll be sharing more insights, messages from the other side, and practical tools to help you stay connected to your divine path. When you subscribe, you're not just staying informed. You're joining a community of souls who are waking up and remembering their purpose. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. You never know whose life you might touch by spreading this message. And remember, when you take even the smallest step toward your awakening, God sees it. The universe responds to every act of faith, love, and courage. You are not here by accident. You have a purpose. And the more you align with that purpose, the more blessings will unfold in your life. So if you're ready to embrace this journey, if you're ready to step into the fullness of who you are, join me. Let's walk this path together. Let's help each other rise, grow, and remember. Because when we come together, miracles happen. You are loved, you are guided, and you are never ever alone. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay open, stay connected, and trust that the best is yet to come.